everything is happening in its own timing, and I don't need to try and push or rush anything.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
happening anyway. And if I don't feel inspiration in the moment, then I will feel it in a different, more appropriate and more perfect moment.
Because it's not just the outcome that we think we want. It's a whole unfolding of a whole tapestry of threads that all matter and are all part of how beautiful it is and how satisfying it is. And is it a good movie or is it a boring movie? Like, they're all good movies. So yeah, there's going to be some intrigue. There's going to be some moments of like, WTF, wait, I thought he was the good guy, he's the villain.
Yeah.
What? I did not see that coming. Like, there's all kinds of things that exactly, plot twists, where I've learned, like, holy shit, if we have a plot twist on our hands, like we have an evolution that, okay, we're going in a different direction now, then clearly that is the path. Like, this one wasn't supposed to be, like the sooner you can let go of what you think. Dolly's been saying a lot lately, like, let go of the outcome. Like, don't try to control the outcome, control the process inside of yourself. Like, how do you feel about it? Why are you doing this? What are you seeking by doing this? And then let the outcome be whatever it wants, because hopefully you're doing it because it's fun.
Exactly.
Because it's satisfying, and it doesn't matter what the outcome turns out to be. Yeah. Obviously
do what feels good.
Yeah.
No, that's such a good point, to let go of the outcome, because a lot of the time, like, the outcome that we are envisioning for ourselves is like nowhere near as great as it's going to be. That's hard to, like, because maybe you have some grand plan for yourself, but it's not, like, there's probably something better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, how many people like wish in high school that they could marry their high school sweetheart, and then how many people actually do, right? Like, it's like, thank goodness for unanswered prayers, because that was not the best, highest path that could have ever happened. So like, we get shuffled, whether we realize it or not, like, onto the path where we're supposed to be. And sometimes that shows up as like betrayal and somebody like shitting all over us, and that's what causes us to like leave them and move in a different direction. But like, that direction has, I know this is a movie, but like on Sex in the City, when Charlotte divorces Trey and she marries her divorce attorney, like, how often does those kinds of things happen, like, where you had to go through the hard thing because it led you to the good thing. Like, I believe in that wholeheartedly. Like,
and it turned you into the person you needed to be to like receive that.
Yes. That there's like, that's part of setting the stage for. So this is from Hannah Gadsby. Have you ever watched her?
I think comedy? So. Yeah. The first one. She has another one.
A couple comedy specials on Netflix. And I think this one is from Nanette, which is
that's the one I saw.
First one. I think she did another one after that. And Nanette was where she quit comedy. And she talks about how, like, as a comedian, your job is to add tension to the room and then dispel the tension from the room. And that's where the punchline is, and that's where people laugh, and you like make a joke, and that's dispelling the tension. But for the joke to be funny, you have to insert the tension first. And so it's like this whole levers of things that I'm like, I had no freaking clue that comedians are up there like doing all this, like, attention. I don't know. I really thought that was fascinating, because I think life does that to us in general, where they add tension just for the satisfaction of the best part of the vortex is when you go in. Like, you have to have the tension just for the satisfaction of when the tension is released. Like, what good would an orgasm be if there was no such thing as tension? Like, that's the whole point of an orgasm, is to release tension. So like, and reproduction, I guess, and the non-child haver. So I don't even think about that side of it.
But in women, I took this class because I needed a science credit in college, and for some reason, anthropology counted as science. So I learned a lot about monkeys in college. But there is no reproductive purpose of the female orgasm. They still don't know why. It might just be purely joy and pleasure. So
I would hope that it's so women don't have to be perpetually raped just to further the species. That like it's like when Scooby does something good and you give her a cookie and Stella gets a cookie by default because Scooby got a cookie. So Stella got a cookie. Stella did the right thing all the time and Scooby's being trained. So it's like that. It's like, if we didn't enjoy it, we would have no interest.
Do it. Exactly. And
because like all it is
women
like,
are
pain. Like you're going to give birth. You would never ever let any one of them near you. Like, no reason for it. But we enjoy it too. Like that's like one of those myths that's as old as time, is like men enjoy sex and like women don't. Well, that's like just bullshit, obviously.
Yeah, that's a story. That's another limitation, like a limited story, you know? Yeah. And a lot of us, like, I guess back to the book again, like we're all playing different games in life. Like if you're going to play the sex game, you know, like you can also get to this busting loose point of like, the rules don't apply. You know, there are no rules. They're made up rules. And we don't have to play by them at all.
Well, and that's like what fetishes are, and kink and all that kind of stuff. Like we all
playing the game by your own rules. Mm-hmm.
Like
following your joy.
I mean, that's allowed. That's allowed. Like you want somebody to spank you with a wooden thing, like by all means, like that's on you. You do what you want with another consenting individual, and I'm good.
Very true.
And that's I think that's part of like how our society is evolving, is that sex is like becoming less and less taboo. And with that, like just in general, like our shame as a collective goes down and down and down and down and down. Like the more we're able to just embrace like our own animal nature, like sex is just part of that. Like your animal self takes over. That's the whole point. And no, there's no reason to be ashamed of that.
I was even thinking when I was reading the book, I was thinking about how you were talking about like shaving your head, which is cool. But I was thinking, like, that's like the hair game or / like the beauty game or the like aesthetics game or however you want it, the vanity game. And then you can even divide that into the subsection of like the hair game, you know, is like, you don't have to play. You can bust yourself loose from whatever game that you want. Like you don't have to play these games. They were invented for us to have fun, yes, and we can play whatever games seem fun, but if it doesn't seem fun, you don't have to play it.
Right.
The whole thing. The whole point. It's like, if you want to come here and you want to play the stocks game or whatever, like by all means, be a stockbroker and play the game and have fun, but know that it's not real.
Yeah.
And if you want to play the beauty game, then like, okay, that's fine. You want to be Miss America or whatever, like that's your game. And if you're having fun, then more power to you. But if it's not fun, you don't have to play. It's like we don't have
when
to
you tie your identity. Like you tie your identity to I'm Miss America, and now you're in the unfortunate circumstance of having to control the physical world, and you're fighting with the hologram, and you're like smack dab in the middle of phase 1. But like the makeup game is a perfect example of like, I played that game for a while and I did it because that's just what you do. I liked it also. I had fun with it sometimes, but I also wore makeup to work almost every day because that's just what you do. And then I stopped playing the makeup game and the world kept spinning and nobody ever even said anything, or like, to me at least, like maybe they're talking behind my back, I don't know, but like it just wasn't even a thing. Like it didn't even seem to like blip on the radar of the world. The fact that Carly didn't spend 10 minutes this morning like putting on mascara and foundation, like, and I'm like, what? Well, I've been spending like 10 minutes every day, which adds up into 2 days a year if you're working 5 days a week, literally 48 hours a year if you spend 10 minutes per day 5 days a week. You can check the math. Like I did it that one time and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
No more.
Why am I spending 2 days per year just so that other people, when they look at my face, they see what? I don't like makeup stop making
look presentable. It's like
what does that mean?
What does that even mean? Or professional.
Right. And so like that's like the reason that I stopped wearing makeup is kind of funny. It's like I got in a relationship where we were having like the best sex I'd ever had in my whole life. And so in the morning, I would rather spend 10 minutes in the bed and not wear makeup to work. And that was what made the decision for me, was like, this version of spending 10 minutes, I get something.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting, this is very beneficial, 10 minutes. When I spend 10 minutes putting powder on my face and then go through my day, I don't see what that's getting me. I'm expending the effort. I don't feel the return the same as if I spent the effort over here. I get a big return. So like, what even am I doing? What choice am I even making? Like, why am I doing this? So it's like amazing how pleasure and suffering can both put things into perspective of like, what are the choices that you're making? How are you choosing to show up in the world? Because like you said, you don't have to play any of these games. You can do whatever you want, whatever works best for you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's your amusement park, so you don't want to play. You don't have to
like
play.
If you don't like going on that ride, then quit going on the freaking ride.
Yeah.
Like, you like other rides better, than go on the other rides like instead. Like, if it were a real amusement park, people would never make that like misassumption or whatever. Like that autopilot mode, it's like quicksand. It can pull you in and like you forget that you have such radical choice in the matter.
Right.
You just do things because that's what you do.
You went to the amusement park and you followed the crowds, basically.
Right.
It's like following where the most people going. Like, I'm gonna go play that game instead of looking around and deciding for yourself. Yeah. Like, what game? Look at all these. Like, what do I want to play? This is such a cool, fun place with all these awesome games that I can play. Yeah. Which is, again,
and most of us perspective of Earth. Yeah. And we all spend our lives like waiting in long lines because that's where everybody is, instead of like going somewhere that is what we truly enjoy. And then you're the front of the line. Nobody else is even there. Yeah, like you could have constant access to your favorite ride if you would stop following like what everybody else is doing, where most of the time you're not playing, you're waiting in line for your turn. Right. It's like, you're really not supposed to do that. But like, some of us feel safer following the herd. There's no doubt about that. That's a real thing.
Yeah. And I do think we're meant to like experience the contrast of it, of like, you've lived this way. Now you're opened up to this idea that you could do it differently. And then now you're going to step into trying it. And then now you have this living example of like the contrast. And that feels like the point, you know?
For sure. Like, you have to know the opposite. To know peace, you have to know the opposite.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it helps me have more like understanding for other people who are so immersed, you know? And it's like, if that's where you're meant to be at right now, then I totally respect that. Because I know that just like me, like, you have an expanded self too. And, you know, I don't know, I guess I created people in my game who are playing these games that I'm trying to bust loose from. Because like, that's part of it. Like, that's part of creating that tension, because there's nothing to escape from otherwise.
Right.
Like, they're creating it so that I can escape from it. So thank you to them, and thank you to me for creating them.
Right.
To do that.
Yes.
Serving the mission.
Totally. Like, to just be awake when you get here and like never be conditioned and just be awake the whole time. Like, that's one experience. And I think there are people having that experience, but it's like just another variety to be awake and then let the conditioning overcome you and then come back out of it. Like, that's just a whole nother storyline, you know? Like, what if I went back and did it this way? Like,
yeah,
it's all good. Yeah.
That's so true. Because I guess like the thought came into my head that like, if we're all having our own little movies, like the Earth is also having her own movie throughout her experience, which is much larger and longer than ours. But there is like this overarching storyline that's going on where things are evolving at this point. And like, the more there are people like us and like whoever else is like doing this work right now, the more we're creating that, like, we're setting the scene for then whoever's coming next or down the line, you know, will get to experience the new Earth and like live in this place where they're born awake and they get to like stay that way. And then that's just what's meant to be at that time. That's the natural progression, and things will change eventually after that. And I don't know, like, it just is what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And our existence is such a tiny, tiny blip on like the overall Earth existence. So it's, you know, the arc of our lives, it's like pretty much just a flat line.
Well, like, yeah, humanity in general, but especially
Yeah,
like
that
us
too.
individuals, like we're barely anything. Like that's what I love that is it like meditation where you do like, you know, yourself in love and then you wrap like your neighborhood in love and then your town and your state, like, and then it's the planet and then it's your solar system and then it's like all of this dimension and then it's all of the dimensions. And by the time you're done with it, you're like, do I even exist? Is this even real? Nope. Like, I don't think so.
But yet at the same time, it's all you. So it's like,
right.
It's one of those things where this has also been one of the things on my mind is like, how are we so small and insignificant, yet also the biggest and most significant thing at the same time? Like that paradox exists and we live that. We are both.
Yes. Which that like Libra full moon like is all about expanding our tolerance of paradox. And so again, like weaving this all together right before that, like I feel like it's going to take like that Libra full moon is going to take all of these threads that have kind of been put into place and just like shine a light then where you can see like the whole tapestry of like, holy shit, I didn't know I was making that. Like I was just putting pieces together and all of a sudden I have a whole picture. Like, yeah.
Oh, that's always such a cool moment when all the like tiny little pieces that have been coming together, all of a sudden you see the connection and it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think the more that you go through that and the more that that happens, the more you can trust that, like, even from the time that you've been handed like the very first piece, you just know that like before long, I'm going to see a whole picture that like this piece means there's another piece coming and there's another piece coming and there's another piece coming and it will turn into a picture. Like you don't need to fret that like, but I only have this one piece, but that's just a signal that like more pieces are coming.
More.
And, trust.
Yeah. And I loved your example of like the money situation you were talking about and getting the cash, because it's like you didn't know it, but like at the time of your having that question or that thought of like, oh, it'd be nice if I had this, it already existed at that point, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't know it. So it's like maybe that's the reason you had the question, was because it already existed, right? Like like you wouldn't have had this wondering, this inkling, if it didn't already exist for you, basically. Yeah. I feel like that applies to pretty much everything.
Well, like what Abraham teaches is that like basically you're the last cooperative component to click into place. That like by the time you have an idea for something, it exists and it's ready and it's left to you to match your frequency to it. So like by the time you get an idea, that is your signal that like, ding, the banana bread's done.
Yes.
It's not for you to create it at that point. It already exists and it's for you to like allow its creation to unfold. Yes. Nice, it's like a whole different vibration than like, oh, I got an idea. Now I need to call this person and make a plan and set a schedule. And like, no, like that's your idea. Like just sit back and watch it unfold itself. Like, holy moly, like don't have to lift a finger. Like it's all
just only do what you feel inspired to do.
Makes sense. Like that divine symbol.
So inspired. Yeah. Like if you feel so inspired to like create something, like by all means create it, but out of pure joy. Like don't do it for any purpose or any reason besides the fact that you felt like doing it and it feels fun and good. It's like that's a cool way to live. I like that. Can't we
how that's like
that?
Right. And then each of those fun things becomes this building block of like the bigger picture where like I'm the main person in my story, you're the main person in your story, everybody is, but we all do overlap. And like the book, you know, that the guy wrote and like he wrote it, but technically it was for you. Like you created that book. Like so he happened to do the work so that you could receive it. Just like these guys built the house so that I could buy it later. Like what's really happening? Like what even are you creating? Because there are lots of people all over the world creating things on your behalf that you probably know nothing about at this point. Like to just let yourself live there. And I'm just here in the ease of all of that, that like everything is all taken care of already. And when something feels fun, I'll do that. And that'll be the piece that I'm meant to contribute. That like the path of most joy, that's like a real thing. And I think that's the new earth. That's like how it is in the new earth, is like we understand that our emotions are guidance, and we keep ourselves in those high frequencies, and we let the universe unfold all the rest of the pieces.
For sure. As much as I love Dolores Cannon, I feel like that's where she kind of makes me laugh. And like, I guess we're thinking of things in this like phase 1, phase 2 perspective. I feel like she definitely kind of tried to look at things through a phase 1 perspective of like thinking that the new earth was this physical thing that was going to be born, like thinking that like it's going to be a literal new place where like some people are going and others are not. And it's like, I don't think it's physical like that. Like we're creating it. We're creating it here in this space. But I guess the other thing, okay, one more thing, but I was thinking of like different dimensions, I guess, and how it's like, okay, so here's our amusement park. But that's not to say that you can't like walk upstairs and then maybe there's another layer of the amusement park that's covering the same space but in a slightly higher dimension or octave, and that there are different things going on there that we can't see from downstairs because we're not up there, but it's technically happening in the same place. And I feel like that's kind of what dimensions are like. So maybe it's more of something like that where it's like this dimensional shift of like just walk upstairs, like just level up,
raise your frequency,
just
because like dimension and frequency, I think, are a lot the same. I don't think they are the same, but like each dimension has a frequency.
For sure.
And to move between dimensions is to say, change your frequency. And I think the 3D world has a frequency, and the 5D world, or the new earth, has its own frequency. And depending on your base frequency, that's which one you live in. And so like if you're fearful and aggravated and frustrated and poor me and powerless and all that, like obviously that's a 3D vibration of this physical world is bigger than me and I'm small and insignificant. And in the 5D, we know that that's not true, that like everything is a reflection of us. So all I got to do is tweak my frequency and all of a sudden my world is different, easy peasy, no big deal. So yeah, I think it's all right here. It's all just like I feel like I already mostly live in the new earth, in the sparkly, where there's enough, you're surviving, you're happy, like you have your simple pleasures on a daily basis, and it's a nice life. Like that's, and there's always more, of course, but it's okay to like have enough. Like, Abraham's like, people are like, no, I don't want to say that because then the universe will think that I don't want that other thing, but I really do want the other thing. And it's like, yeah, but you can want the other thing and still acknowledge that you have enough where you are right now.
Yes.
And like when that thing comes, that'll be great. When my situation changes, that'll be great. But right now, I'm still technically okay. I still have enough. My survival needs are met, like that's possible, even at a very low income level. And
my goodness.
Like that's where I'm at in my experiment, is like right now I make 25% less, maybe even less than that, maybe more like 20% of not 25% left, 20% of what I made back at the software company is what I make now. So I make 80% less than I made back then. And I am so much happier where I am now than back there. Because like, you actually get to the heart of like, what do you really need in your life on a daily basis? Focus on those things. And the amount of money is irrelevant as long as you have enough. So,
such a perspective shift. I think it was Dolores Cannon that described, like, I'm pretty sure, how we're here, humans on Earth, we're basically like babies in the playpen kind of thing. And like, because we're at such like a low, technically it's like a very low level of evolution. But I mean, babies are adorable, like we love babies and we can respect and appreciate babies. And so there's nothing wrong with like being at that level. But like with the baby in the playpen, you kind of like, unless there is like an emergency or something, like you kind of like, you have to let the baby play and kind of figure things out for itself. And so it's like kind of like us, where it's not like our higher self or whatever is like swooping in to save us all the time, because that's not good parenting. You have to let the kid figure it out for themselves.
100%.
Unless they're like gonna really severely like injure themselves or whatever, you know, like you don't do that.
Blow up the planet kind of
and
thing.
you can also like from the perspective of the parent rather than the baby, then you know, like I'm gonna like the baby will receive what it needs when it needs it, like
Right.
you know. But as from the perspective of the baby, you're like, I want it now. I want it right now. Give it to me.
Of course.
And that's where we're at right now. So we just have to have a little trust that like my mom, my higher being, whatever, is gonna give me what I need when I need it.
Yes. You will have the sustenance that you need all the time.
Yes.
I believe that. I mean,
for sure.
I don't know. I'm guessing that a lot of our like scarcity versus abundance mindset comes from like being inherited from our parents. I'm guessing is like, you know, those kinds of ancestral lineages that happen. Like, you know, the way you play the money game is kind of one of them. And like my parents, they definitely drilled it into me about saving my money. And I think I picked them a lot because like I have my own heavy Taurus energy, my own second house energy, and saving money is basically the same as saying, don't spend it on shit that doesn't matter.
Right.
That's basically what a savings account is. It's like practicing delayed gratification. Like I don't need every little thing that I want, like, oh, that's a cute pair of jeans, and oh, that's a nice like meal or whatever. Like some of those things can be foregone and like let the money sit there and then buy a car or a house or like something that is truly going to impact the daily quality of life that you have on this planet. Like save your money for what truly matters. So like that lesson from my parents was like foundational. And I feel very grateful to have inherited such frugality from my parents that like they don't spend things that they don't have the cash for. They don't believe in loans. Like they don't operate on debt at all. And I mean, I don't live quite to that extreme, but I definitely took a lot from them that helped me to get set up with the stability that I currently enjoy and to transcend it, because they also like are very concerned with kind of like what you've talked about with your parents, like saving for the future and like retirement. And they had 4 kids. So like college money and like all of that. So I feel like they saved, but to their definition, like their savings accounts, like, I don't know if they'll ever have enough money in it. So at that point, like, again, you can save and save and save and save and save and still feel broke.
Yeah.
So it is such a frequency that, the amount of money is never going to change, like how you feel about how much money you have.
Yeah. That's so true. And I feel like I got a really similar experience from my parents, which I no doubt also chose to have that and to like use that as my foundation of like self-limitation pretty much, and then to eventually transcend it. And then therefore also healing like the family line, just like we're always doing that all the time. Because whatever your parents gave you, they probably also got from somebody else. And it's just been morphing. And now we get to like transmute it, which is really cool. But yeah, definitely very like needing to have money saved up. And then also like not ever buying like the nicest thing, even if you have the money for it. It's like, you don't need that. But you could just, like, which is not bad. It's just like, I don't know, just learning to like let go of those things that I was handed and learn that like that was conditioning and that like it doesn't make it true. So yeah, it's a process, but that's the point. That is a whole point.
Well, and it's kind of like what we were saying about like, you know, that was just you spending some time in your parents' world, which further informs like how you want your world to be. And a lot of us take our parents' world as kind of a blueprint, and some people run with it for the whole rest of their lives. And others are like, okay, thanks for this, this, and this, but I'm letting go of all of this over here. Like, that's not going to work for me. Like the workaholic thing, like having to shed that mindset of like, for me, it wasn't even about the money so much as it was like the pride of being able to claim and know that I'm a hard worker and like, that's my identity. And so, like I've done well at jobs and whatever, but mostly it's because I have a problem with toxic productivity. Like maybe I'm good at making money, but on the other side of the coin, like I also sell my soul for that money. Like there has been times where it's like a quote out of the book of something where Stephen Forrest is talking about Taurus. He's like, the shadow side of Taurus is materialism, where yes, you have a lot of money, but the money you have cost you too much. You paid too much for your money. And I'm like, been there, been guilty of that.
That's like exactly how this book primes that, like sets that subject up, is like the cost, like the true cost of that wealth and that like security is so high that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And you like have a sense of that, something feels wrong and something feels amiss.
Yeah.
Because you're spending
like,
too much.
I was working for a company that claimed its values were one thing. And then after 5.5 years of working there, I knew that on paper, that's what they say. But once you work there, their value is profitability. And that's really their main concern, is like being super profitable. And I had to admit at that point that I wasn't matched with this company by accident. Like I was in it for my own profitability. And so here I am in this perfect environment. But it's like you look around and you realize like, wow, yeah, like the whole profitability angle is such a tiny slice of the pie, and it neglects all of these other things. Like, how is that money made? Because I looked around at the business model and was like, I don't agree with how they charge, which customers they charge, what they're charging for, and all of this, like the pricing structure of how that money was coming into the business, I fundamentally don't agree with. And so now it's like, yeah, I make a lot of money, but that money came from people who I believe don't deserve to have to pay it. And so now how do I even live with myself, like taking this money? So, that's where it's like your money costs too much. Like you had to sacrifice your own values to get a hold of that money. It can't be satisfying at that point because you've already sacrificed yourself. Like that was my experience anyway, of like feeling like I'm making all this money, yes, but I'm going against my own values to do it. And that doesn't feel good. The selling your soul aspect.
Right. Because with money as energy, like it responds to that. You feel that. Like you feel it, you welcomed it in, and then you feel it. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. They talk about that a lot in that second money episode.
I'm gonna listen to that today.
Of like when you spend your money, like the goods you buy, you are voting for those goods and that process that made that good. Like you're supporting that. So when you're buying like Gap clothes, for example, like Gap has had so many different run-ins where we catch them using underage workers in horrible working conditions, not paying them. And yet Gap is raking in billions of dollars a year. So like we as a society are saying like, we're okay with child slave labor and dangerous working conditions as long as my top doesn't cost more than $19.99.
Right.
Like, what? What? So I'm going to shake my head and I'm going to buy that poncho from that vintage shop, because like, that's what happens when you buy the old stuff. Like you're voting for, let's find value in what we already have versus let's make a bunch new clothes. Like a lot of what's in our landfills at this point is fast fashion. Like people buying a $2 shirt and then throwing it away. Forever 21, H&M, Shine, like there's all these companies that are just like filling landfills at this point because they're selling such ridiculously cheap shit. And they're using this questionable labor to get it done for a $4 dress or whatever it is. So like,
so that you can shell out less so that you can receive more, technically.
And which that's out of balance. Like that's not ever going to do well in the long run. Like, what do you think you're paying for? Why is it so cheap? Somebody got screwed. That's what happened. And it wasn't you. And so you don't care. It's like, don't you care though? Like that was what happened to I was like, I can't watch them keep doing this. Like they are screwing over the little business in favor of making it cheap for the big business. Like, what? Like, that's not fair. Like, how is this? This isn't my company. I can't do anything about it. So it's my choice if I continue to work and get this paycheck, or if I say, you do you, and I'm going to go over here and do something different, knowing that I'm never going to make, that much money if I just quit and like don't have something lined up. Like, yeah, I'm going to have to take a pay cut of some sort. Right. But I think I'm okay with that. If it means like I'm actually doing something that's like ethical, like maybe that's more important.
Feels good.
Like feels extra money.
Yeah. Exactly. Because you like declared that to the universe that was more important to you. And then it was like, well, guess what? You'll be taken care of no matter what. So
right.
Like congrats. Cause like that was like that realization was for you, that like now it's like you're doing what you actually want to be doing. And like I know you had the grocery experience after that too. And it's like, but that was your own. I mean, I'm sure that was a much different perspective on business for you. It's such a different position. And having your own business and like actually being a creator and like creating that. And now it's like your creation has taken on this life of its own, and you get to like release it into the world to go serve other people on their journeys, which is cool. Cause like, I bet you created that for a lot of people that you had no idea you created that for them, like that's how it is when we create things.
Like the grocery store is like the manager now is Jeff, and he started working there 6 weeks before we opened. And I will bet you like he'll die before he quits the grocery store. Like his passing will be his resignation. So he's just like one of those people that's like rock solid, thrives on a routine and repetition, hates change, absolutely abhors anything that does not go to plan. So for him to find like, here is this set of operations to like make sure that the grocery store opens every day, closes every day, the bank drop gets made, like it's just a giant recipe, and he follows it every single week. And that's so perfect for him. And he lives in Holton, like 2 minutes from the grocery store. He's got kids in the Holton school. He was working out of town at a casino where like he was working in the evenings, like during the casino's busy time, but that meant like he's home during the day while his kids aren't there, and then he's not there in the evening while they're there. So he's like not spending time with his kids. So like this is the perfect scenario for him. And I never wanted to run it. That was never my dream, but I do want to build it. Who's going to run it? I don't know. I don't care. It'll figure itself out. So like, here's him, that this is like win-win, win-win, like great.
That and I think it's already, like that piece was figured out. You weren't consciously aware of it, but it was already figured out and it worked.
Yeah. Cool. Well, and like Jeff, it was so funny when I noticed him, or like when I saw him, like his soul and recognized him was in the interview. And I asked him if he had any like experience on a cash register, like had he ever been a cashier anywhere or anything like that, or run a POS back office system. And he said, no, I don't have any experience on it. And I was like, do you think you could learn? And to admit, that's a very condescending question, but he looked at me like I was a fucking idiot. Like, yeah, I think I can learn how to run a cash register. Like that's how it was like, totally, what the fuck are you talking about? Like in that face. And I was like, I love him. I love him.
Perfect.
I have him. Yes. And he was already like this. He was going to be the third in command. He was going to be the grocery manager. And I had hired this other guy who was going to be the meat manager and the assistant store manager for the store overall. My second in command, most likely, he was going to be the manager eventually when I stepped back. That was the intention. And he had grocery experience. He was my only hire that did. And he was supposed to start on a Monday, like 8 weeks before we opened. And he called me the Friday before and was like, my employer offered me a raise and a company car, and I will not be coming to work for you. And so Jeff got a promotion, and now he's the second in command, and he's in line to the throne to have store manager when I step back. So it like, not just for me, but for him too. If Mark had taken that job, if he had not like been bought off by his current job, like Jeff would have been further down. I wouldn't have developed that relationship with Jeff. He wouldn't have been promoted over Mark ever. As long as Mark was there, Mark was above him. Like, and I just, it's like when he called me that day, I was here in the kitchen, and it's like Friday at 10 a.m. and he's supposed to start on Monday. And he's like, I'm not coming, Carly. And I'm like, okay, thank you for calling. And like, it was so like, I feel like I just dodged a bullet. I feel like this is the universe telling me like that was never going to work out.
Yep.
And it was the best case scenario for us to, because Mark was local. And so it's like he applied, he has experience, like professionally speaking, it was the best case scenario to offer him an offer that he declined. Like that saved us from pissing him off, and he didn't actually have to come work there. It was like the best of everything. And it just like all put itself together.
Yeah.
Like always
that
does.
just happened. Yeah.
I think about that. Like how many people have like full-time jobs there now because of like, and I built the grocery store for 10 months and like did not get paid for that time. I lived off of my savings and built this grocery store. And when we opened, I started getting paid, but there was like no back pay. It was just, it's my business. So I'm investing my time to open it. And that was like the best year of my life, I think. I don't know. It'd be pretty hard to beat, but yeah, that time of like creating that business and seeing all the different people show up and the pieces fall into place, and like all of it was delicious in a way that I can't even describe. It's like the best. And now I see it with owning authenticity, like you showing up and the audience showing up and the different videos that, you know, you just make random things that are fun. And like every once in a while, one of them goes crazy and like, oh, cool. You know, like it just unfolds itself. So perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Just led by joy, and that's it.
Yeah. It's pretty. Do what's fun.
Yeah. We make it so complicated. It doesn't have to be that complicated.
Oh, it doesn't. So yeah, that's weird. That I love that book and this whole conversation. And I did a little bit of the prep for Friday's live stream this morning and was very all up in Taurus again this morning, and finding like putting a different angle on it since we just talked about it last Friday. So yeah, put some different stories down and stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive more into Taurus. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. Is one of my empty boxes in my chart? Not that means there's like nothing. You know, I'm sure.
Right, because you like still have Venus.
Yeah,
like your Venus and Pisces, and like you have all that in your second house, and like not that that's Taurus, but
and I did realize, because technically my descendant goes through Gemini, but then on either side of that is Taurus, and then the other side's Cancer, and those are all three the only sectors that have no planets or bodies of any kind in it. But I tend to draw Geminis into my life. Historically, this has been the case. And Jeff is a Taurus, and my cat is a Cancer. And so I was like, I am literally covered my gaps. Yeah,
you're good.
Majorly reflect my shadow back to me is kind of the realization I've come to, is like with them filling in that sort of empty space is like them reflecting my shadow back to me. So whenever I get mad at one of them, I'm like, okay, let me look within and see what's going on.
Like reclaim your Taurus or your Cancer or your Gemini or like whatever it is, like reclaim that power.
It's hard for me to see it in myself. And so it helps to have those people in my life where I can see it in them. And I know I'm reflecting, like this is a mirror situation. And so it helps me see it. It's helpful.
Yes.